This is so fun when you get those values in place and you start to see that light pop. I love scenes like this where the light is really vibrant, where I can capture the warmth of the atmosphere. I'm going to walk you through this step by step. We're going to talk about color mixing, composition, how to build up the strength and values in order to make that light really bright, powerful, and believable. After I land my drawing, I'm going to wet down both sides of my paper, and then I'm going to lay it flat on my surface. And I like painting in this way because as the paper is damp, it gives me time to work wet into wet within this first wash, and I like that approach to painting. If you are more comfortable with taping your paper down, that's just fine. But I do want you to try this technique and explore it and see if you like it. By wetting both sides of the paper, the front and the back, the paper will lay flat on the surface and it will dry flat as well for the most part. And now we're ready to work into the first wash of the scene. Now the first wash of the scene is all about the light. We are painting from light to dark. So within that first wash, we need to be laying in the lightest parts of the scene, the middle values and darks, all those will come later. This first wash is all about capturing the light effect. So what's helpful when we start this phase is to think about the lightest area of the scene. Squint at your reference photo, maybe even turn it black and white. That is helpful in removing some color information so you can really start to think in terms of values. Values are what are going to make your light bright in your scenes, so we got to think about the values. So I'm laying in the warm color on the house. I know that that's the brightest part first, and let me talk you through some of these colors as I'm dropping them in. I use a lot of raw sienna when I paint. There's some raw sienna here in this mixture. There's raw sienna in this green. This cooler area is more lavender. So areas that need more warmth, I lean more towards raw sienna. Where there's some cooler areas, I use cooler colors like lavender, cobalt blue, and colors like that. Right now, what I'm doing here is painting wet into wet, like I mentioned, and really thinking about the light of this area. If you look in the reference photo here, we have a few different shades of light, warm colors. Some of them more yellowish, some of them more green, and in the shade, that's where we see more cool colors. The temptation when we are painting this phase is to jump in to the middle values and darks, but try to show some restraint here. Stick with the plan. Think through the light values within this first wash. One of the tricks about this painting is you have these soft shadows. Now, I know I'm not going to get all the soft shadows in on the side of the house in this part of the painting, but I just dropped a little bit of those in there. And you can see, even within the light, I'm transitioning from warm color into some cooler areas. Warmest here, where the focus of the light is going to be, and as I move away from there, I know everywhere else in the painting needs to be stronger values than this. This is where the light is hitting. That's the focal point of the scene, and I have to keep that in mind through each phase. I'm going to zip us ahead a little bit. Now you'll notice in the reference photo, this roof on the house is a lot darker than the light on the house. Don't paint it that way in the first wash. Just take away the light of the paper and leave a nice warm tone underneath it, but do not try to get to that value within the first wash. All that paint will flood down into what we've already done and create a mess. So now I'm going up here, painting the sky, and coming right up to this wet edge. I'm not using super thick paint with a lot of water that's just going to flow down and destroy what we've already done. That's part of the trick of watercolor, is thinking about paint consistency. How much paint is on your brush, how much water is on your brush, and getting a handle of what's going on the paper. What angle is your paper at? How wet are things when you go in and paint? And a lot of this will improve the more that you do this. This is timing, right? It takes repetition to get some of those things down. And I put a little bit of warmth in the sky down at the bottom. That's a little bit of Rose Madder Permanent and Raw Sienna. And up at the top, I'm using Cobalt Blue and Cerulean Blue. Those are the colors I'm using here. I'm coming right up to the edge of this. I'm letting it softly join into what I've already painted. And just taking away the white of the paper, letting the colors flow into each other. Now, if I had just been working on dry paper, I would have taken my time to work on this house and possibly come to paint the sky, and then I'm just bumping up against hard edges. and I'm not getting that soft merge of colors that I really want in this first wash. I added a little bit more blue back in the sky. Don't be afraid to do that. The sky is more rich at the top of the scene. So if you need to go up and add some more blue, don't be afraid to do that. I'm taking some raw sienna, some raw umber, and dropping in some of the light that's on this branch while the sky is still damp. It's nice to get those soft little transitions in color. So back here, we want to go really bright and warm because there's light hitting back here. We want to capture that feeling. The light that's on the ground behind the house, we have to think about all that in this part of the process. Now I'm getting a little more strong in my green. You'll notice how much stronger the ground is than the house. So look at how dark this is compared to white paper. That's one of the tricks of painting this first wash is we feel like we're painting too dark because we're comparing our values to the white of the paper. Once this dries, it's going to be really important that I painted the ground strong enough. This color of green here is Cobalt Turquoise and raw sienna mixed with cadmium yellow. That's where I'm getting the most vibrant green here. Where I want the light to show the most, that's where I use the most cadmium yellow and the most warmth within the mixture. Other places that are in shadow, I'll be cooling those down later on in the process. Even though I dampened both sides of the paper, I'm still able to get this little hard edge right here between the two. And again, that's part of watercolor timing. I'm waiting until this has dried enough where I can paint across it without all those colors just flooding up into that damp part of the painting. I'm thinking about the shadow that will be cast in this little path of light leading up to this part of the house, and I'm keeping that in mind even within this first wash of the scene. So that's all the light values. The lights are in place. Now once this dries, and I do let this dry for the most part, at least 90% dry, before I jump into the middle values. So let's go ahead and pull that up next. This is what it looks like once things are dry. We are going to be painting the middle value shape. What I'm doing before I start this process, I don't always do this within the middle values. I'm going in with some clean water on a clean brush, and I'm dampening where I want those soft shadows to be on the house. Just getting the paper nice and damp in those areas. So now I'm starting over here with the shadow of the house and working my way through that. I'm using a stronger blend of what I used for the light on the house, and that is Cobalt Turquoise and raw sienna, a blend of that with some neutral tint and a little bit of raw umber. And then the areas that are cooler, I'm using a little bit of Cobalt Blue. And I was using more of a medium round brush. You'll see now I'm using this Escoda size 12. This is what I use for a lot of the detail work. I like these brushes. They have a really good point to them. So I'm looking at the shape of the shadow in the reference photo, and I'm generally trying to follow that, but there comes a point where you have to separate a little bit from your reference photo. Things are happening on the paper. You have to consider timing and also what looks good compared to what you've already painted. So I'm not, really just trying to copy everything exactly. There's a little bit of artistic license and fluidity to that interpretation as well. I had to go a lot darker on the roof, and I debated this because I knew some of this would flow down into the shadow shape. But I did need that value, and I could have waited, but I wanted to go ahead and see how it looked now. So I dropped in the value of the roof carefully. I'm taking my time there, and that is some raw umber and raw sienna, neutral tint. And some of that is flowing down into this shadow, but I don't think that's going to make a difference. Always looking for connections, trying to see this shadow shape as one big connected shape, letting the solid parts of the wall connect with the more broken up parts of the shadow. And now that I have that established, it's hard to see these connections between the value of the shadow and the trees behind. But if you can really squint, if you can turn your reference black and white, and you can see that those are so similar in value, and there's a range. When things are close enough in value, I can go ahead and connect them. And I'm going right from the shadow into the background of these trees and just changing my color, but letting them flow and connect into each other. And I know it's counterintuitive, but creating that large solid shape with connectivity where colors can flow from one to the other, that will make your paintings even stronger. When we start to paint everything really separate, just little pieces all over the scene, we aren't left with a solid, strong image. So I connected the values of the house into the background of the tree, still working into this while things are damp. I left a little bit of that bright warm color underneath this from my first wash. That's why I laid that in there. And so by really thinking in layers, you can lay in, little bits of color that you'll need in your next wash that you can paint around in your first wash. And this color back here is more raw umber, neutral tint. And I'm dropping some darks into this to give it a little more form while it's damp. And there's some of the shadow on the ground that connects into the house here. I've painted that. And now we're getting into the big shadow that's really going to make that light feel strong. So I'm using more Cobalt Turquoise, more neutral tint, and connecting that right into this wet edge before everything has dried. You have one go at this, and the shadow kind of defines the lay of the terrain leading up to the edge of the house. Look how strong I had to paint here. But this is so fun when you get those values in place and you start to see that light really kind of pop in the scene. It makes it all worth it when you can think in layers, when you can work through, and then finally see that light really become evident. The trees come through here, they come through the other side, so I'm continuing that over here on this side. That is the middle value shape. Let's pull up the darks and the details. Now I need to think about the trees and the other areas to just finish this painting. I laid that mark in the very first wash of the painting, this little bit here. Now I'm gonna kind of dry brush over it and leave little bits of that behind. I like that approach because it just adds a little bit of sophistication and complexity to your scene. If you put in the thought from the beginning to the end on the light, that's gonna come through in your finished painting. Viewers can pick up on that. They can see when you have put thought into this and it's well crafted and not just slapped together. So now I'm adding a little bit of dry brush over the top of that, and then what we're left with is this. Now you'll notice I moved to a rigger brush. Look how refreshing and exciting those sharp marks are over the softness of the background. That staccato, that sharpness over the softness is a beautiful juxtaposition in painting. So take advantage of that when you can get hard marks and hard edges over soft edges. These little fine marks also bring that area closer to us and really help in creating that feeling of depth and distance. We want to think about, the marks become more simple and less descriptive when they're further back into our scene. Look how simple this background is compared to the broken mark and the textures of things that are closer up to us. If you can get just that right there, you're going to bring a great new element of depth and distance into your painting. So little marks, some little trees, little things close up, it just makes all the difference in creating depth. Now I'm ready to get into some of the details on the house, and you'll notice it's the dark areas of the window, just these little bits of detail. And once we get those darks in, the light is really becoming evident in this scene. So this is when you get to really take your time, work through the details. When I add in details, I do often try to step back from my painting. It's really easy to get sucked into your reference photo because adding details is fun. We have the eye for details. We don't often have the eye for the simplicity and connectivity in the larger shapes of the scene. But you give a very beginner painter a brush, they can hone in on every little detail. They see those details. It's the larger, more vague shapes that are actually harder to see. So I'm taking my time, trying to not do too much here. I liked this little bit of dark at the top of the roof. I felt like it was a nice touch to bring some detail and finish to that part of the house. There was this little driveway line here. I added that in over the top of the shadow shape just to kind of break that up a little bit. Gives a little bit of interest and lead us into the scene down in the bottom here. One last thing I did as far as the shadows go, and I debated on doing this, but I really feel like it turned out nicely. I went back and I laid a little bit more of the shadows on top of the house. I felt like if you look at the reference photo, you can see that detail, and I feel like that's exactly what it needed to finish that feeling of the light and the shadows upon the house, is just going in and adding a few marks to go along with everything else I've already done there. There is a look at the finished painting. I hope that me talking through the nuances of timing and showing you the values, especially in the scene, can help you when you take on scenes that have vibrant light. Next week, I'm going to show you how to paint these cars. We're going to work through all the details and keep building on some of the things that we've learned in this video. So be sure and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you're watching this video and you're thinking, I have so many questions about this approach, and you need a resource that can help you right now, take a look at this. Have you ever been really excited about a painting and you get all set up, you find that right reference that you're excited about, and then it's time to go and you feel lost? I have a free resource that I want to give to you today that can help with these problems. My 5 steps to plan a successful watercolor painting. I walk you through the crucial planning phase of your painting that will help you understand what you're going to paint first, second, and third. The planning is really so important, especially in watercolor. This medium is harder to correct. It's so immediate. So having that plan is very important. I send you a PDF that you can download. And the great thing about this is you can have it on your phone. You could print it out. You can download this right now before you start your next painting. All you have to do is follow this link here and download my 5-step guide to planning a successful watercolor painting.